What's up, Fit Fam? Coach Rye from Team Flex. Today we're going to take a journey from the start of figure division Olympia champions all the way to current today figure Olympia. And this is going to be pretty fun to really look at where the division started, how it's developed, what's changed, what hasn't, and just overall get a better insight into how divisions develop and things like that. I've done this with bikini and everybody loved it, so let's dive into figure and talk about this. So the crazy thing about the figure Olympia is, even though in all this time, right, because it started in 2003, okay, it was the first figure Olympia, 2003, okay, and in all this time, it's 2023 right now, there has only been 7 total figure Olympia champions. So a lot of Olympia champions retaining their title. Obviously, we all know Cydney, just got her 7th one here. But let's take a look at everybody and go over where it started and kind of leading up to now, what is different, what's changed, and what's the same, and what not. Because here we are, like this is 2003 to 2005 figure Olympia champion Davina Medina, okay? And I can't really tell you what exactly these pictures are from because I can't find a lot of photos. I'd have to go get like a bodybuilding magazine from that era or something to really find these. But right out the gate, we could see, right, looking at her physique, some similarities. The shoulders are developed. They got that roundness, that fullness. We clearly got lats. We got, oblique action going on. We got some muscle size for sure and shape. But you're going to notice right out the gate, this is not nearly as big. It's not nearly as muscular, and it's not nearly as conditioned as anywhere recent time figure has been. But it's definitely cool to see where it started. We still have the markers of a lot of things we talk about with figure, these V tapers, the shoulders, things like that. But the crazy thing about this type of look and this type of physique is, this is almost on par with kind of today's bikini type physique. Like if we took a bikini champion right now and had them pose figure, they'd look kind of like this. So it's definitely interesting to see how far figure has really developed in that. And, obviously some suit differences and things like that were going on back then as these divisions were being created. But, just again, like look at this back shot here. This is not like a current today's figure back shot. And keep in mind, this is who won the Olympia back then, 2003, 2004, and 2005 Olympia figure champion. Okay, so definitely a difference in muscularity today. We still have some markers here, but it's just not the same. Not a lot of glutes, not a lot of hamstring, not a lot of development overall, and not a lot of conditioning. Let's move forward here to our next champion, okay? This is Cydney Gillon. She won 2006, 2007 Olympia, all right? And obviously, right out the gate again, we're seeing some of the similarities that we saw with the previous winner. We're seeing a little bit of difference here. So I do think Cydney Gillon, even though still does not look like current today's figure, right? She definitely does have a tick up in muscularity. So a little bit more mass in the upper body, in the shoulders, the arms, in the lower body too. And I think, looking at these, a little bit better conditioning overall as well. We can see into the back. We start to get a little bit more depth of the back coming in, scaps, traps, rhomboids, rear delts, more fullness, more shape, and the glutes start taking more shape here, more from the quads, more from the hamstring. So a little bit up in the muscularity and into the development overall here, which really started the trend, moving forward. 2008, Jennifer Gates here. So Jennifer Gates, again, we're looking at, suits that we would never see on stage today, stuff like this. It's still 2008. This is a considerable amount of time ago for this division and its evolution. If you guys have not followed, how divisions really work and how Olympias work when they start, it starts out basically where we're seeing the judges kind of create the criteria. It takes several years really to do that. Like wellness, for example, is really kind of sinking in finally into that groove where now it becomes more well-known what wellness criteria is going to be. Bikini did the same thing. It's just really how it starts. So this is about the time, figure starts to take better traction, more direction. We get a better idea of what judges want. So Jennifer Gates here, 2008 Olympia figure champion. Again, interesting to see how different the posing was, right? Suit's different, posing's different. Like this is the front pose shot for Jennifer Gates here. So it's definitely interesting to see. But even then, we can see more muscularity coming through now. We're starting to get more veins and things like that showing, which is an indicator overall athletes, coming in leaner at that time, more conditioned overall. And this is the only back shot I could really find of Jennifer Gates here. But again, we can see some more muscle, a little bit better conditioning, especially lower body. We're really starting to tick up more on the quads, the glutes, so on and so forth, okay? I don't want to make this video 17 hours, so I'm going to try to speed it up, but this is becoming easier because now this is when figure really started to take more direction into, okay, we want more muscle, and we're going to start seeing some differences in things. So suits start looking different, posing starts looking different, muscularity starts looking different with Nicole Wilkins here. Nicole Wilkins came in 2009. Looking, you know, with some big delts, you start seeing that. We start to see a lot more of the lats, start to see more of that shape through the midsection. It just really starts to hammer home the V-tapered look judges want to see. And now it becomes more about muscle when Nicole Wilkins really starts coming through in 2009. It's not still as much about conditioning. Conditioning's in general pretty much on par with what we had seen in years prior, but we do start to see, you know, more muscle, which I think is when the division really started to take that turn for more muscularity, okay? Now let's look 2010, Aaron Stern. So this is where we start to see some of that classic figure shape really start coming through. So the tapered midsections, shoulders that are more developed, the lats start to take a lot more size here, and she actually had beaten Nicole Wilkins, and they kind of played a little bit of tag back and forth here. You know, we move into this, we get a little bit more depth to the back, and this is where we start to also see some better conditioning start to come through in 2010. We start to see a little bit more of this glute thigh separation, more, you know, into the back, the spinal erectors, the lats, everything kind of cutting through, just showing a little bit more. So I think, you know, bringing some of that same size that kind of Nicole had before, with a little bit of conditioning is what edged her out and brought her into that spot. Nicole Wilkins comes back 2011 to retain the title. And, you know, again, just adding more size, a little bit more size at that point, and brought in a better conditioning to really kind of take it back from Aaron at that point, where we're seeing still more size, more conditioning. So you see now we're like talking about halfway through this division at this point pretty much, and we're seeing a lot more development, a lot more size, and a lot more condition overall. Aaron Stern comes back 2012 to again beat Nicole Wilkins right here. You know, so they're kind of going back and forth, first and seconds, and so on and so forth. And this is when I think the shape really started to take a little bit of a different turn, right? So we can see the waist is a little bit tighter here, shoulders still big, lats are still big. They're coming in bigger though, and this is starting to really create that kind of classic figure V taper that we see. And, you know, the lower body symmetry with the quad sweeps and everything come into play too more so. I think that's all definitely a big factor, and we're seeing still more shape to the glute come in, more shape to the quad, more development in the hamstrings. Overall, it's getting more and more muscular, more condition, more development, and shape becomes a top priority as you're moving through these years. 2013, Nicole Wilkins right here. This is when figure, you know, again, just starts continuing. Every year it's a little bit more, it seems like, a little bit more muscle, a little bit leaner, a little bit more muscle, a little bit leaner. We're seeing that here where we can start to see some more markings of abs. It's crazy to say we haven't really seen any abs yet in figure at this point, just very soft lines. But this is when we start to see that, and you start to see the quads splitting up more, and you're seeing just overall more size across the physique, across the board. And this is what we see moving on because Nicole continues to just win this dang thing. That's 2013 right here. She goes 2014 right here. And again, bigger, more muscular, bigger, more muscular, leaner. And then right here, 2015. Okay, we're getting into more recent time. This is when everything changed, I would say, okay? This is when, you know, figure had been that way for a while. It was taking that direction. It was building. It was getting leaner. And then all of a sudden, Latoria comes in and boom, this is an entirely different shape we are looking at here, all right? This is a whole different look. Right out the gate, you can see this is when the waist, like she basically came in, brought this, and the judge said, this is what we want, this waist. We like this V-taper. This is the most dramatic V-taper we see on stage. That's where we want to put this division. And so that's really what happened here. Latoria comes in. She's got this crazy tight waist. She's got the big lats, big shoulders, and, you know, the quads that are having more muscle than they had prior, and everything is just overall dialed in, more shapely and more muscular. And again, here we go, leaner, more conditioning. Okay, so she came in 2015, wins the title. You know, you can just see the difference in the muscularity glute shape's different, the separation's different, the quad size is different, you know, the shoulders, the conditioning, everything here is just, wow, this is a whole different look for figure. And this is when it really started to take traction, you know, in this direction that kind of is where we're at today. So we look at Latoya here again. She wins 2016, same type of physique, same good shape, same look, a little bit more conditioning is really what changed here. Kind of same muscularity, but brought more conditioning. Boom, we click 2017. Our current figure champion, right? So she has won every figure Olympia from 2017 to 2023, the 7-time champion, Cydney Gillon here, okay? So Cydney has basically set the tone for the standard, the criteria at that point. I think Latoya kind of shifted it, and then Cydney came in and swooped it and pretty much said, this is where it's at, this is what we're going to be. Everybody else kind of lined up for second because that's just what's going to happen. And so she basically brought 2017 a whole new look to the division. You know, what is more of the classic look we see today, she continued to bring. We're going to go through these years still, so stick with me. We're going to talk more about those, but just to look at this, this is where it really ticked the corner because we got the biggest shoulders we have seen yet, the biggest arm development we've seen, the biggest lats, the tightest waist, and the most shape lower body overall with the most conditioning we have seen out of any years prior. Okay, so definitely just really kicked up the muscularity, the conditioning overall, and then this is where it's another big part we talk about with figure, the depth of the muscles, right? So that's where we can see, you know, these cuts and things like that, but we can also just see the depth of the structure of the muscles in the back and into the lower body, hamstrings, glutes, quads, all of it tying together. This is where it really started to go. And, you know, the crazy thing, the cool thing that we could watch basically the evolution of figure after that is with the same athlete, because it's just, you can really get an idea of how the division has been shaped and judges' direction and where it's going today. And also remember, as you're watching this video, this criteria and what you're seeing is relevant for you across the board if you're trying to compete, you know, next season, 2024, figure, anything like that. This is what you're going to be looking at criteria-wise still. So we're going to keep moving along. 2018, Sid basically brought the same type of physique, just a little bit more muscular, a little bit leaner, but mainly it was just more shape. She's really settling into the shape. 2019, again, this is now where we get to see more of the figure kind of conditioning coming through, right? So she was definitely more conditioned here, brought that same classic V-taper shape that we will see across the board now is the standard criteria, but we're going to start seeing more splits in the quads. We see a little bit more cuts in the abs. We're seeing some separations here. We're seeing some separations in the shoulders, the upper body. So overall, just more bringing that same kind of muscularity, that same classic shape that she really kind of coined for the division. And then also just bringing more conditioning to match that. So we start to see more depth to the muscles in the back, more depth to the shoulders over across the board, just bringing it through more. 2020 Sid right here, which I think is her best. I want to know what you guys think actually too. What do you think of these figure champions? Like, is there any that your favorite? Are you blown away considering where it started 2003 versus where we're at here now? I mean, and what year do you think Cydney has brought her best physique? Because 2020, I would say, was, in my opinion, the best Sid we've seen across the board here. This is just such a crazy looking physique as far as shape goes, and as far as, you know, conditioning, muscularity, it was just so on point. It is, you know, the standard of figure, in my opinion. And obviously, judges agree. She won that year as well, 2020. And what we really saw here was just a lot more of that kind of shape come through, right? So the size was there. We start to see the lats sweeping in differently. You know, the waist still stays totally tight. The shoulders bring a little bit more of that, you know, fullness effect through. The quads, the lower body's full, and the conditioning was just so crazy at that point that it was like, you know, you could see all these muscles happening, but it was still so fitting within the criteria where we're not seeing striations, deep cuts, and, you know, graininess that we would see with other divisions, but we do see a lot of depth to these groups. So basically, it's just that muscularity being maxed out with that conditioning being maxed out, like literally any leaner, and it would have hurt her on stage, but right here, just totally nailed it. And so this was, you know, in my opinion, Sid's best. And then from then she went 2021. Brought relatively same physique, a little bit different in the conditioning. In my opinion, looks a little bit softer this year. Still brought that though. Again, all the things are going to be the same iconic shapes. That same V-taper, that lat spread, that width, the shoulder development, all's there. 2022, you know, a little bit more improved in the conditioning. Still that same shape. Everything's there. Shoulders are there. The quads are there. And, you know, we move down into here where we go 2023, most recent, just up until like literally a month ago at this point. You know, her current physique, we talked about how she was basically one of the smaller athletes out of the figure lineup and how, you know, she really maintained that shape, and that's how she edged it out, in my opinion. And I think that is still to this day the case. This physique, I wouldn't say is her best. I still think 2020 was her best, but either way, she's still the champion. She still brought it, and I think she's edging out kind of the mass monster look that continues to try to happen in figure. So this kind of year, this is kind of, you know, interesting to see how figure criteria has been set a little bit differently when we got bigger, leaner athletes on stage, and Cydney still comes and wins the 7-time figure Olympia champion title right here. That's a pretty good indicator to us. The judges are making a statement about the criteria and where they want it to head. They're not saying they want it to go bigger, 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 or leaner, leaner, leaner. They're saying, oh, we want to stay true to the roots that we kind of set, you know, around that 2015 time, and so on to 2017 when Sid became champion, continued all the way 2023, right? So it's really judges saying we want you to stay true to the criteria, don't keep advancing it. You know, we obviously saw early in this division how it started way back 2003, very different look, and it kind of advanced every single year in muscularity conditioning to lead us right here to judges basically saying, no, we really like what we decided back in 2015, 16, 17, you know, those, you know, Latoya years, Cydney years, that now we want to keep that look. We want you to maintain that look. We want to focus on how the shape is the definite answer, right? The tight waist, the lats that sweep out big, the big shoulders, everything, that development, that V-tapered look. And then, of course, the most important thing is symmetry, up, down, left to right, everything tying together, the upper body, the lower body, it all comes together. Maintain that muscularity. Don't get too big, though. Don't get too lean. Don't show that graininess, that striation. And also, don't come in with too much body fat, right? It's really all about hitting that iconic look, that right look, that perfect look, to really just say, boom, there it is. This is figure division. So remember what I said. You don't have to look like Cydney to be competing. If you're thinking about your first competition, you're thinking about, you know, trying to get a pro card, whatever, you don't need to look like her to be competing, but you do need to have that kind of criteria and this kind of idea in mind, because this is what judges are going to look at as their standard and say, this is what I want to see across the board for show or not. We need to see those markers of the waist, the shoulders, conditioning all to match. So definitely cool to look back on figure and kind of see where it all started and versus where it's at now. I mean, like, let's just do this real quick. Boom. This is crazy, right? We're looking at two totally different worlds back then, here and now. I mean, the evolution of figure, and we can only say, where's it going to go from here, right? Is Cydney going to continue to win for basically ever, and she's just going to be the standard until she's done? Or is somebody going to come up and take that title? Are the judges going to change their mind and push this division a little bit further? These are all things we're going to have to find out and see as we go, but definitely exciting to look back on it and get a better insight and better ideas into what was then, what is now, and where the future is going to be. Comment your thoughts. Let me know. Do you like figure now? Do you like the way it went? Did you prefer it some other year in this lineup? And what do you think about Cydney? Is she going to continue to win for pretty much ever? Or is she, you know, maybe is she going to think about retirement soon at this point and just walk away at that 7 times? So let me know what you think and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Coach Rye is out.